Debates can be instructive. Debates can be informative. Debates do have a tendency to change the minds of the 20% that are in the margins, right? 10% from one side, 10% from the other side. The rest of the people that are coming into the conversation, coming in to watch a debate, are firmly held. They have firmly held convictions, right? They have their perspective. They have their opinions. They have their worldview. They're not going to change it. They just want their interlocutor to be dominated. They want their champion, their intellectual champion, to destroy the other side's intellectual champion. And then there's some people who are a little bit more malleable. And there's value in reaching across the aisle and getting those people on your side. Having said that, however, when you consistently engage in debates over and over again, you end up creating an audience. You end up cultivating an audience that is truly toxic, that only wants that blood sport, that only wishes for you, the intellectual giant, to destroy others in the marketplace of ideas. People want more and more of that content, and it fosters a very toxic environment. There is definitely a moment in my career as a broadcaster that I can recall where I actually changed my mindset on this. It was, I believe, in the lead up to the 2020 election. I think it was in 2019, or maybe in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, where I used to be friends with Destiny, but we were, on the verge of falling out. But on top of that, there was a lot of people in my community that were, kind of hostile to guests that I would have on, that they constantly wanted me to debate my guests. And one of those guests was Ryan Grimm. And I still remember at the time, I was like, why are people being so ruthless to my guest? Why are they trying to pick apart what he's saying and trying to own him, right? And I thought it was odd. I thought it was not only odd, but embarrassing as well. And because I'm relying on Ryan at that moment to offer additional perspective to people and give us insight. He is supposed to be a person that has, I've chosen as a vehicle to deliver more information. It's not a person that I'm trying to destroy or debate. And that's when I realized damn, I think that constantly seeking out interlocutors destroying the marketplace of ideas fosters a community of people that aren't necessarily like-minded, but instead just simply want that over and over and over again. You explain it here. Real interest in maintaining a position. They are debate mercenaries. They have no real ideological rudder. They will debate both sides of an issue with the same level of passion.
Yes. It depends on who I'm arguing with. I mean, I know what he's getting at. He's trying to say that I'll take contrary positions on a thing. But if that's true, then give me an example. What's the thing that I'm a debate mercenary on?
When Destiny argues against conservatives, it seems like he comes down a lot harder on Israel. Well, yeah, usually because they're saying that Israel is doing nothing wrong. But when he argues against lefties, it seems like he comes down really hard on the Palestinians. Well, yeah, because lefties say Hamas does nothing wrong. I mean, that's kind of what ends up happening because none of these conversations are good. They're all garbage. I feel very confident that I could actually win a debate where I'm arguing in favor of flat earth, just because you can always route it back to esoteric physics concepts and then the person looks like they've lost. When you go into a debate, if you don't really know the subject matter, you can kind of use rhetoric and logic to kind of brute force your way through it if the other person's not as nimble.
I mean, this is 100% correct. He's absolutely correct on this. This is part of the reason why I also think that debates are not exactly debates aren't the best possible way to go on a journey of truth. Many people regularly will say, people who enjoy debates will regularly try to moralize their content consumption and don't just look at it as something that they're enjoying, but instead it's actually an educational journey that they're on. And debates are the best possible way to arrive at the truth, right? But that's not the case. Ben Shapiro could destroy a climate scientist on the issue of climate change if the climate scientist, regardless of how correct he is, regardless of how knowledgeable he is not necessarily the best equipped at arguing those positions. Okay? That's it. People in Destiny's... That doesn't mean that the climate scientist is wrong. That doesn't mean that Ben Shapiro is correct. He simply can appear correct. He simply can appear as a domineering force in that conversation. That's because the format itself lends itself, especially online, to people who are gifted rhetorically, people who are better orators. Destiny does this quite regularly. He doesn't have all the information. He is not the most knowledgeable on any of the subjects that he discusses. Oftentimes, he will assume a position and then move into investigate the position further by looking for talking points that he can use against his opponents. Like he tries to not necessarily dive deep into the subject matter and truly understand it, truly understand both sides and their motivations, for example, but instead he dives into the subject matter to find traps, intellectual traps that he can set up for his interlocutors in the future. He looks for talking points. This is something that Ben Shapiro does as well. Ben Shapiro is a very good debater for this reason. And so is Destiny for this reason. This is the reason why a lot of these people, Ben Shapiro and Destiny and many others that engage in debate, feel confident enough that they can actually destroy their interlocutors in the marketplace of ideas, even if the person that they're debating is actually more knowledgeable than they are. That's it. But this doesn't mean that they're correct. It simply means that they have they have a tendency to appear correct. And it's very frustrating because you end up making your audience less intellectually curious. You end up making your audience intellectually incurious people who are constantly seeking out talking points rather than any sort of additional truth seeking. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, these guys do basically the exact same method. That's why I find it unproductive usually.
But you're only doing this if you don't know what you're talking about, and it's an attempt to kind of like slide past the actual arguments because you can't address them.
I might not necessarily be right or wrong, but they're arguments that I've thought about before. It's not that I'm smart, it's that the person I'm talking to is usually incredibly unprepared.
It's not like my position is hidden. I'm just not going to argue every single possible point that I have if I show up to argue with somebody about something, right?
If I can find some guy that's really confident in his positions, it's super loud about him online, I'm about to get a 300,000 view YouTube video roasting and grilling the them on my stream, right? That's what we do, right? We're debate bros.
What is winning?
Maybe the person deletes their account after.
If they
or gets fired from their job.
Humiliated.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel after you win?
It's like doing cocaine for the first time again, every time.
When I debate somebody, I want to be really brutal, and then I want that person to like feel like an idiot. I want them to look like an idiot. If I make your content creator look like an idiot, well, now you kind of feel like an idiot. That doesn't feel good.
I'm the debater archetype.
Yeah.
You do the same shit. You act like you are knowledgeable and act like you are. You do the same shit, bud. I would like for you to present some examples if you possibly could. Like, there are issues that I'm not the most knowledgeable on, and I will be, I will readily admit it. I don't know why people immediately go, oh, this is projection. Especially when I'm talking about something like a position that I've held for a very long time, for specifically the concept of debates, like the concept of debating online. Bud, mods precision strike the second he's off camera. This is a joke. No, don't ban that person immediately. I wanna hear what he has to say. But basically, my point is this, okay? When you don't have a moral compass or something that guides you through the world, like when you don't have like a empathetic approach to all subjects, okay? And you're simply invested in destroying your ideological opponents in the marketplace of ideas, the audience that you foster in that process is not invested in a political project usually. They're just simply invested in you destroying people. They like the pseudo-intellectual wrestling component. They like the drama. Does that make sense? And I don't like the toxicity that brings on, because then you're kind of at the whims of your audience. They constantly want you to burn bridges. They constantly want you to write manifestos and drop nukes on people. And not only do I think that is unproductive in creating both class consciousness or creating a larger tent of like-minded individuals that you're not supposed to immediately cast aside, which is something that I routinely advocate against in this community, regardless of what people think of me or this community. This is something that I have time and time again railed against chatters on when they're so unimaginably uncharitable, right? Like, I have a very open goal. I want people to what? This is so cringe. Bring the guy on stream. Stop reacting to 6-year-old clips that are designed to make him look bad. Lamau attack. What are you? I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. Are you talking about Destiny? 6-year-old clips?
And
I think this is like new shit. But regardless, this is not about Destiny at all. This is more so about the concept of debate and the toxic audience that it attracts. And I think you're kind of proving that point that I was making. Do you see what I mean? I feel like a lot of time you'll disregard people's view and bash them if they don't align with yours. I don't know. Like, you say, sorry, you say you're a socialist, but actively benefiting from capitalism. Sorry to be rash in my first comment. Wait, but it has nothing to do with the first comment that you said. The first thing that you said was that I present myself as the most knowledgeable person, and then immediately try to like bully and ridicule the person I'm talking to. And there's plenty of moments where I do that, but that's usually after the charitability has gone away, where I see someone and treat them as a hostile factor. It usually takes a decent amount for me to get there. It usually takes a decent amount of charity to erode for me to get to that position. And I only do it if it's like, it's pattern recognition to a certain degree. I only do it when like people are very clearly coming from a different community with a specific purpose to actively brigade or to actively disrupt, to actively derail. That's usually when I yell. As far as the socialist but actively benefiting from capitalism goes, it is impossible to not exist under capitalism, just so you understand. If you are truly interested in understanding this, there is no way to exist outside of those confines. But in terms of like the commodities that I produce, or my own personal, the way that I generate revenue, the way that I create value, I try to keep to the most ethical ways of producing content as possible. I think many people's disagreements with me do not stem from an actual hypocrisy, but one that is envisioned by people that say, oh no, you have a moral system that I think you have, and I'm applying my standards to you, and I will not actually understand what your standards are. So I think it comes from, it's a misunderstood moral system that you have created that you apply to people. But if you're truly interested in understanding, there is no, I'm not making I'm not advocating for like salary caps or anything of that nature. And I think that this is a very common misunderstood perspective where people think like, well, socialism means everybody makes the same money. Socialism means everybody lives in a brutalist architecture, government housing. Depending on where you are on the reactionary pipeline, you might even personally think socialism means nobody has a toothbrush. Communism means I take your toothbrush, comrade. I mean, these things are not correct. However, even if they are incorrect, it's something that a lot of people believe. So when the majority believes it, who cares what the truth is, right? That's it. I told someone I love democracy and told me I'm a socialist. That couldn't be true. You and your sycophants won't research conspicuous consumption. Look it up. I think if you want to understand my worldview, there are a million instances where I've brought forth commodity consumption and the ways in which I actually disagree with other prominent socialists. Like, this is not dogmatic. You know what I mean? I'm not an orthodox Marxist. I hope you understand and can be charitable about this. I think everyone deserves nice things, and that socialism inherently is not a poverty cult. It's simply what people have decided is a poverty cult. Like, other people have just decided that it is a poverty cult. So now you have to abide by the standards that I have presented for you.
very destructive instead of constructive in my conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe the point of a debate is actually to try and bring people together and talk about things that are important to us rather than to tear each other down.
Okay. I'm constantly tearing down, and I can show somebody why their argument is bad, but then when you walk away from it at the end, I'm just like a destructive force.
Anyway, but yeah, in terms of, I think one of the funniest things that people yell at me about is like claiming that I'm inconsistent or claiming that I am audience captured, because many of the incidents that happen online is me not being audience captured, is me railing against the chatter because they're pissing me off, because they're so like hardlined. They're such like severe hardliners in the way that they approach everything, and the way that they don't want to be charitable to people who are exhibiting like certain forms of bigotry or whatever. And it's ironic because it kind of it goes back to the debate sophistry as well, where they kind of do that, like leftists and progressives kind of do that as well. And it's something that I'm very frustrated by, because I think it's unproductive if your goal is to try to change people's minds. So they will in the same exact moment, they will say like, oh, he is audience captured, and that's why he assumes certain positions even if he doesn't like actually believe it. But then they'll simultaneously show moments where I'm actually not audience captured, where I'm yelling at someone in my audience because I disagree with the way that they are approaching the subject matter. And they'll be like, oh, he hates his audience, he's getting owned by his own audience or whatever. But are those hardliners and not just trolls? Why not ignore them when it comes to clear? They're hardlining for the sake of pissing you off. I think that it can still be instructive. Like I said, if we were all sitting in a stadium where there's 30,000 people in an arena, and if you were to look to your left and look to your right, there would be at least one thing that you have changed your mind on, either before you found this community or after you found this community. It makes sense. A lot of the things that I talk about, the subject matter that I approach, like the perspective that I have, is oftentimes new for people. The perspectives that I hold are not necessarily super commonplace. It's not something that you learn and take for granted in the same way that you learn and take for granted transphobia, for example, or misogyny, or bigotries of every sort. But here I am talking about my perspective all the way back, I believe in 2019, talking about my attitude towards debate.
People in Destiny's community know your position. If you keep getting stuck on it so much, it shows that you seem triggered, therefore losing in the marketplace of ideas, which, by the way, is also indicative that like most people's understanding of debates are idiotic. Further evidence that debates are not good for arriving at the truth, and just simply about overwhelming your opponent rhetorically.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what I think debates are. And that can still be productive. That can still be productive. Make no mistake. Especially when you use that format to eviscerate and destroy the talking points of someone who is ideologically your enemy. Okay? But if you are engaging in debate for the spirit of debate, because that's your primary form of content, you're inevitably going to run out of shit that you care about, and you are going to start debating the efficacy of child pornography or the ethics of accruing CSAM. Like, that's it. That's insane. That's anyway. Or you're going to find contrarian positions to argue against because you're arguing for the sake of argument. You're arguing for the sake of like winning an argument. And the community to cultivate in that process is invested not in an ideological project or the maintenance of one, but instead invested simply in the thrill of destroying your enemies. And they will then turn around and fight those battles for you as well, as evidenced by the many different people that chimed in while I was watching that brief snippet. People who are fighting the battles of someone else as loyal soldiers. For a lot of those people, we might have a shared perspective. We might have a shared worldview. You know what I mean? But they've lost that perspective. In that moment, they're simply a part of a community, and they like the sense of identity and the sense of community they get from participating in these sorts of actions. They like being a part of the process. They like being a part of the blood sport themselves. Anyway,